Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. I'm Meryl Fury.
And I'm Carrie Bruno. We are healthcare professionals and co-creators of this podcast. This episode is brought to you by the cancer fighting power of broccoli. This week on 6 Million Seeds, our guest is Tiah Tomlin-Harris. As an overcomer of triple-negative breast cancer, she has dedicated herself to being a community change agent and advocate, with a focus on health disparities, Black women's health, and healthy lifestyle education. After her diagnosis with breast cancer at a young age, Tiah co-founded a nonprofit called My Style Matters, in addition to the My Breast Years Ahead Sisterhood. Tiah is also a cancer coach, breast health educator, speaker, and a board member and advisory board member for several organizations and pharmaceutical companies. This week was a perfect time to have Tiah on the podcast as it coincides with National Cancer Survivors Day, which is June 5th. Whether you're currently fighting cancer, are a cancer survivor, or have a loved one affected by cancer, we hope this episode leaves you empowered by realizing that lifestyle changes can have a powerful effect in helping you fight your cancer rather than fuel it. Also, these same lifestyle changes can greatly reduce the risk of receiving a cancer diagnosis in the first place. Welcome.
Thank you. So glad you're here. So glad
Yes,
you're here.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So with all that, and I have to say this is how we came to know of Tiah. I got to meet her in a Food for Life instructor training.
Yes.
So she is also a Food for Life instructor, along with her long list of other accomplishments.
Yeah.
So glad you're here.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
So jumping right in, it seems like from your bio, you're involved in so many different things, from your nonprofit to being a coach and an educator. Tell us about an average day in doing what you do.
Oh goodness, the average day right now has been meetings, and more meetings. No, even with those meetings, I mean, I get calls from cancer patients all over, or family members or friends that says, hey, my aunt or my cousin or my friend has been diagnosed with breast cancer. I need you to connect with them. And a lot of that is just having conversations, really establishing a baseline, seeing where they are, and kind of going through, what's your lifestyle like? What do you do? What do you love to do? Who are you? What are your day-to-day activities are that can potentially have been an influencer to being diagnosed with breast cancer or any other type of cancer? And so pretty much that's what my day-to-day have been here lately, especially with the pandemic. Unfortunately, we're finding more and more women that are being diagnosed at later stages because they have been told for, the first year, 2020, 2021, hold off on getting your mammograms, don't come in, or postponing treatment. And so now we're finding more and more people are being diagnosed at later stages. And so I'm getting more and more calls from women who have issues with their breast or have been recently diagnosed. And so that's what the bulk of my day have been, is just addressing that. And then the other part is just the advocacy work, working with pharmaceutical companies, working with other organizations, planning activities with our organization to really just educate people and help them be healthier. So that's kind of how my day goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Well, let's look at a little bit more your growing up. We want to learn more about you. So when you were a kid growing up, I don't know, you're in Atlanta. Maybe you ate like I ate when I was growing up. What did you eat? Like, what kind of stuff did your mom and dad feed you?
So growing up, actually, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Growing up, it was the standard American diet, what they call SAD, right? It's the chicken, it's the burgers, and we lived a fast-paced life growing up. And what I mean by fast-paced, although I didn't recognize when I was young that I was in a rural community, I didn't really recognize it until I got older that I grew up in a rural community, but we were very active as children. I have two siblings, all three of us played sports. Our parents were involved, coaching and team mom and things of that nature. So we were living a life, on the go life. And so my mom would cook, but then oftentimes because we all play sports, we would just pick up things at the rec center, whether it's a hot dog or a corn dog or burger or French fries, whatever. So a lot of that is what we would eat. And unfortunately, it being called the SAD diet, it really now, looking back and what I've learned, it was sad and it still is sad. So yeah, that's pretty much what our diet was.
Yeah. So I guess what turned the tide for you and what led you to eating healthier?
Well, of course, one, aging, you're getting older and you start to see different things in life, but also the breast cancer, being diagnosed with breast cancer really was a wake-up call for me that I had to make some drastic changes in my life. I knew that this disease did not run in my family. So I started to wanted to really understand what was the cause. And, before being diagnosed, that the certain factors that are that can lead to being diagnosed with the disease. And so for me, I knew that food was one. I knew environmental factors. I knew the things that I put on my skin, not only in my body, but on my body, things in my environment. I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry and I was a chemist. And so understanding, a little bit about chemicals, not that I was a super duper expert, but knowing that chemicals have cancer causing, or some of them are carcinogens.
Right.
And so if those chemicals are in your products, then hello, what are you exposing yourself to? So knowing those things is what, caused me to make this pivot and change and knowing that I need to eat healthier.
Okay. So then you mentioned your cancer diagnosis. When you were diagnosed, did your healthcare providers mention anything about nutrition? Was that anything that they provided as an option?
No, it's funny you say that because I asked those questions. As a matter of fact, right before I started my treatment, I asked the question, what can I do to help myself? So not only just, the food or the products that I was using, I really wanted to understand from their perspective. I know the research that I had done, but I really wanted to hear from the providers to tell me, what are the things I can do to help myself? Because I always ask the question, are you feeding cancer or are you fighting it? Knowing that we all have cancer cells in our body, it's just a matter of, is it being turned on and turned off? And so I asked the question, what can I do to help myself, from a whole person care? And they basically says nothing you can do, just eat whatever you want. We really don't want you losing weight. Those are the main things, stick with your protein. If you want ice cream here and there, you can have it. It was never any discussion about nutrition that was brought up by them. It wasn't until I started to ask questions about, can I see a nutritionist? Is there a nutritionist available? That they said, if you want one, here's some information that you can, contact them. But it was never any discussions about being healthy. And even now, post-treatment, unless I bring it up, there's not a discussion about, okay, what can you do now to lower the risk of this disease coming back? And it's mind-boggling because these are the discussions that you have when you see your PCP prior to being diagnosed. They want you to eat healthy. Of course, they talk about the pyramid and, get your whole grains in and, the meat, of course, but they're not really talking about that. And I'm not going to say all doctors. This is just from my experience. And then some of the other women that I've asked that's in our sisterhood, they pretty much say the same thing, and I think part of the problem is when doctors go to med school, they're not getting a lot of hours around nutrition. So they don't know. They really don't know how to guide you and tell you. And, I don't fault them because they went to school to be a doctor. They learn what they learn. And trying to learn something new can be a bit overwhelming because they're trying to keep up, especially in oncology. Cancer is so, complex. It's a complex disease. And so trying to learn that added information on top of what they already have going on can lead to burnout. But what I think the healthcare system needs is to have those experts in place, that it should be a standard part of your care. Like it shouldn't be, I have to ask. It should be an automatic, this is a part of your care. Yeah. It should be the whole person.
Yeah, right. That would be great. I know as a healthcare provider in pharmacy school, nutrition was not really talked about. I think there was maybe one class, but it was an elective. So not everyone had to take it. And I don't even think I did. But You know, to your, when you mentioned providers, I think they have their patient's best interest in mind. I would say majority of them do. And they're teaching their patients what they're taught. And if they're not taught nutrition, well, then, I mean, they don't really have that experience. So you can't expect them to know that. But if they were taught that in their education, I think that would be an eye opener.
Yeah.
And we know that so many different types of cancers are mostly caused by lifestyle and environment. So like this would be huge. Why aren't we talking about it more?
Yeah. And what's interesting is, you hear the cliche terms, food is medicine, or you are what you eat, right? We hear these terms, they came from somewhere. And then when we talk about the gut, what is it? 70% of our gut, our immune system is in the gut, right? Because that's the connection. And so if we know these things, why aren't we getting back to talking about eating healthier, eating better, looking at the things that we know cause disease? Why aren't we having that conversation with our patients more? And again, I totally think that it should be a part of standard of care.
Yeah.
This is a question that comes up over and over again in the conversations that we're having with people. What is going on in our healthcare system, in our educational system, in our food delivery system? What's going on that which is kind of obvious to the three of us sitting here, and at least a half a dozen other people that we've spoken to inside the last 3 weeks. But why isn't it? What really is that? And that's like a rhetorical question, right? It's not something that we need to sit here and try and figure out, but certainly something worth pondering, and certainly something that, like, you're a grassroots organization with My Style Matters, right? And My Breast Years Ahead. What can we be doing, which you are obviously engaged in? What can we be doing to make a difference for people if they go to their doctor, they're not getting that information? We can certainly start supplying it, right?
Yeah,
and that's kind of
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely
what you're working on.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something about your pronunciation. Now, a lot of people might not have heard it, as you said, cancer, but Tia's saying cancer in a particular way. So can you tell our audience about what you're saying there?
Yes. So I don't say cancer, CANCER. I say cancer. So CAN''T-CER. And the reason why I say cancer is because two reasons. One, of what cancer could not do. People focus on what it did do, but it's more so what it did not do. It didn't stop me from walking in my purpose. And the second thing is what God showed me while I was going through is when you put the cross in it, when you put him in it, which is the T, then you can do all things through Christ, including overcoming cancer. And so that's why I say cancer and not cancer.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah. Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It's mindset, right? It's all about mindset and how do you reverse it? I was diagnosed with triple negative. And one of the things that I say all the time is, I was diagnosed with triple negative, but now I'm turning those negatives into nothing but positives. It's all about the mindset and how do you flip that around to make it work for you.
Right. You know what I would love to know, and maybe this is something you could send us and we can maybe post it. You're talking about not only what we put in our bodies, we'll certainly come back to that, but what we put on our bodies.
Yes.
And you have this rich background as a chemist. Tell us a little bit about some of the preparations or cosmetics or different things that we might be using that could be detrimental in some way, or that we maybe should be avoiding.
Yeah, so a lot of the products that we're using, unfortunately, they have a lot of toxic chemicals in them, also known as carcinogens or endocrine disruptors. And so we know from research, that they have found them to have a connection to cancer. And so one of the things I advise people on is really read your labels. First thing is do an assessment, right? Write down 10 things that you use on a daily basis, and then go through those things and look at the ingredient list. Typically the very first couple of ingredients, those are the ingredients that are that product has the most of in that particular item. And so I say, take that list and then look at things like parabens and phthalates, sulfates or SLS. Look at those types of those chemicals. And then there's a long list because there's so many of them, unfortunately. But look at those chemicals, or look at the list that you have and marry them up, match them up. Do you have those things in there? There's also an app that you can download, which I love, love, love. It's called Think Dirty. And with that particular app,
say it again.
Think THINK, like you're thinking, right? Dirty, okay? Like unclean, dirty, think dirty. And you can actually use that app, and you can scan the barcodes on the items that you're using in your house, and it will tell you how, quote unquote, dirty that product is, right? Wow. And so it scores it from, I think it's 1 to 9. And anything that's in the green is clean. Anything that's in the yellow, it's a little bit questionable. Anything that's in the red, I say red is dead, don't use it, right? Okay. It also tells you why. Fragrance is another one. Fragrance is one of the top ones. And the problem with fragrance is we don't know the chemical makeup of that fragrance, right? And so that's considered to be proprietary information. So companies don't have to reveal it. Although recently California passed a law that the companies do have to put what those ingredients are. And I think it's important that we should know what those ingredients are, because then we can make informed decisions. When we don't know what's in that fragrant, what make those chemicals that make it up, it can be one chemical, it can be hundreds of chemicals. We don't know. And so when we don't know, we cannot make an informed decision. And therefore we're putting those harmful substances in our body or on our body. And when you look at Black women in particular, Black women have the highest body burden. We are the biggest spender in the beauty industry. And when you think about in communities where majority of Black people live, unfortunately, there are beauty supply stores on almost every corner. Yes. And the products that they're selling are coming from places like China. Well, the raw ingredients that they're using to make those products is harmful chemicals. They're endocrine disruptors. And so we wonder why young girls are getting bigger breasts. So we wonder why, they're starting their periods, early, because of these things that we're being exposed to. And it's not just that, of course, the foods, which you said we'll get into, but it's those products that we're putting on our skin. Our skin is our largest organ. Anything you put in your skin, you're absorbing about 60% of that. And where is it going? Right into your bloodstream, your lungs, what have you. And when you think about breast cancer, when it comes to fragrance, where do we spray perfume? Right? All up in our chest and breast area, right? Again, all of this is breast tissue people don't realize, from your collarbone down and under the breast. So if we're spraying in those areas, and you're talking about the lymphatic system, and then we're not moving the lymphatic system to get those toxins out of our bodies, we're just overexposing ourselves and don't even realize it. Yeah. And it happens in a slow pace. So when I tell people about, healthy lifestyle, it's not just about food. It's also these other factors, including what we're having a conversation about right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many more apps, I can share resources with you all that you can share with your audience, but these things are important. These things are important. We have a clean beauty class, a clean beauty matters class that we educate people about this on as well. So, yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we're going to have to invite you back so that you can do that for an online audience. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question about the thing, and then I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll go back to our usual, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
So the Think Dirty app, you said, is about like cleaners and household chemicals, or is it also about cosmetics?
No, they have cosmetics on there as well, beauty products as well. Okay. So like I said, you scan it, it'll give you alternatives. That was the other thing I didn't mention. It will give you an alternative product that, let's say I don't want to say a brand, but let's say you pull up a particular brand that is listed as a dirty product. Yeah. And most of the things that we're using in our homes, they are dirty. Okay. And so it will give you a product that you can replace it with, like some kind of laundry detergent, right? So you scan one brand, it'll tell you what's going on, and it tells you the actual chemicals that why they're deeming it as a dirty product. Okay. And oftentimes the number one chemical that you find is fragrance. You see fragrance in our trash bags nowadays.
Yes.
Fragrance is in everything, so, and then we have to be mindful of greenwashing. But again, I don't want to get into that because I know that's not the main topic, but there's a lot of greenwashing that's going on too,
Right.
making people think that product, based on the way that the bottle looks and how it's marketed, people think that that's a clean product when you turn it on the back and you're like, oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to maybe give that app a try.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lifesaver for sure.
Yeah. We talk about label reading, and it's the same, obviously, it's the same for household chemicals and beauty products, cosmetics, as it is for food, right?
Yes,
the outside, the front label is a sales page, right? And it's the ingredients and the nutrition information that is really the most valuable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we could be done with this interview now. You like
read
totally
your
ripped the
labels.
door off of that one. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about your nonprofit? And what
Sure. So So My Stand Matters was founded in 2017. I founded it after going through my breast cancer journey. While I was going through, I just saw or did not see the support and the resources that many of us need. It was just a lack thereof. And I said, I want to be a part of the solution and try to close this gap, And my focus, we support all cancers. We support all people. Majority of the people that we support, I say 99.9% are breast cancer and are women and Black women, but we do support everyone. And our goal really is around disparities in underserved communities. How can we educate them to be preventative?
So my mom had breast cancer also, and double mastectomy. First one year it was one, and maybe 2 years or 3 years later it was the other. It was, you already know, you know better than I do. And to watch my mom go through that, it certainly set me on a path. And I didn't even realize it at the time. It was one of my nephews. I have a set of nieces and nephews that are very close to my age. Like, we're almost the same age. I have some older sisters, and they were having babies when my mom was having a baby. And the one nephew told me the other day, I honestly went on a Facebook rant about, and I don't do that, generally speaking. But I went on this rant because I have had for some time a premonition that I was going to lose my nieces and nephews. I was going to wind up burying them based on food preferences and choices and just lifestyle issues. And this one nephew who, for whatever reason, he and I have been close since we were little, he reached out to me for some other stuff. And I said, I think your brothers and sisters and cousins are like tired of hearing from me because I'm on the same thing all the time. Eat your vegetables, drink your water, get your fruit in, eat your whole grains, leave the macaroni and cheese alone, just like And I was so surprising. He said, and this is all through text, of course, he said, yeah, Aunt Merrill, I've been watching you since your mom died. This is the path you've been on for a long time. And my mom died when I was like 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So I totally get, like, down at the deep cellular level, what you're saying when you're watching somebody that you love or you care about go through something like that, the impact it can have. It's life altering. It is life altering.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and I think as an adult, it carried over into adulthood, being single, and trying to climb the corporate ladder. That's what make it challenging, because I know that there are people out here who are eating healthy, who can do it, but I didn't have any kind of balance in my life. It was work.
Yeah.
And to get up in the morning, I would try to sleep until it's time to hit the alarm clock, right? And time to really get up, because I would be so drained because I spent all my time working. I remember as I was climbing the corporate ladder, I would work my corporate job. And of course, that those hours aren't a 9 to 5, those are endless hours.
Correct.
Come home, I would take a nap, only to go to a part-time gig that I would do at the senior living facilities where I would train the nurses. So I would be there from like 10 at night to maybe 2 in the morning, go back home, get a little bit of sleep. So my eating was completely off, and I would just eat whatever I could eat, grab on the go, eat on the go, and when you have that busy lifestyle, and again, this was me trying to climb the corporate ladder, you just pick up where you can, and then being single for me, the other challenge was, well, if I buy it, it's just going to go bad, because you may have a night out with your colleagues, or it may be your friends calling you and say, hey, let's go out. And, I lived in New York at the time. So we were always out and about, because that was just kind of the lifestyle that you live. And by the time you get home, it's so late. So who wants to cook so late? So that was always a challenge for me. Even now, sometimes I'm challenged with waking up and getting breakfast. That's the most important meal of the day. And what they say, eat like a king in the morning, a queen in for lunch, and a peasant at night. Right. Well, it was the opposite for me, because, sometimes I would just have one meal a day and grab a little bit of snacks and munch on it. So, learning those things as a child, you really don't understand, because we're not having those conversations with children.
That's right.
And what I appreciate now, they're starting to do, bringing some of those things back into the classroom, like teaching kids about gardening, right? That was something that I didn't learn. I didn't learn how to garden. And I had grandparents that garden. And when my mom would tell me to get outside and help, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, you want me to get dirty? Like, I don't want to get dirty, not me. And now I have those regrets, because those are the things that I wish I knew how to do. So of course, now I'm trying to Google and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know you mentioned before, like the app and other things, but what is one thing that a member of our audience could do, just a small change that would kickstart a healthier lifestyle?
One of the things I tell my cancer patients is look at what you're eating. So take a week and just journal what you're eating, so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. And so maybe do that for the first week. And then the second week, start looking based on what you've written down. Ask yourself, are you feeding it or fighting it? What did you eat that day that feeds cancer? And what did you eat that day that fights cancer? And I think when you're able to have that visual, it's kind of like, whoa, what am I doing? Right. And so at least once a day, if you're just really trying to get started, ask yourself by the afternoon, have I eaten anything that's going to fight cancer or any other disease? I'm in the cancer realm, but any other disease, have I eaten something that's going to fight it? Yeah. And if you haven't, then your next meal needs to be, I have to eat something that's going to fight it. And so I think that's a great way to start, is just being conscious of that. Now, not being conscious to the point of you can't live, because I think sometimes we get, especially survivors, we get trapped in that mindset of fear, right? And so you're afraid to, eat a little bit of this or eat a little bit of that or what have you. But I think that's a great starting place, and I know everybody can't go plant-based. I get it. You may not even have the access to even go that route. But how do you start small and then eventually work your way to it if you're able to, And so that's kind of where I encourage people, is to start small. A lot of times when we go big, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Yes.
When you try to cut it off all together, it's like, no, so try to start small. And then again, it's doing your own personal analysis to see where you are and then work that way.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
I love the idea of writing it down, because I think, visually that will get a lot of people like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was doing all of that. Yeah. But when it's right in front of you, you see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Earlier you had mentioned it too, and I don't know if it's might have been when we were talking before we started this podcast, but you were talking about the people that you meet who either they have no grocery store in their neighborhood, or the quality of the food in the grocery store is very poor, or there's no fresh produce, there's no fresh, fruits, vegetables. And we find people shopping at either the local corner store, or some people wind up shopping at gas stations, very difficult, very challenging to be able to fight off any disease if that's where you're doing your shopping.
Yeah.
So for those of us who might be in that situation, any words of wisdom or suggestions?
Yeah, I would say, if you can't find the fresh foods, what's the next best thing? And that would be your frozen foods. Go after the frozen foods and work to eat that. Of course, your beans, those things don't cost you that much. But I would say that would be the better path. I mean, try to definitely stay away from the gas stations and, the local corner stores or what have you that just completely don't have any of that. But, if they don't have those things and that's really all you have, then, find out, okay, what do they have? Do they have any lettuce? Can I make a salad? Can I have salad? Like those things, again, is trying to really look for what is the healthiest thing in that store that you can buy and fill yourself up. And one of the things that people don't realize is, and I was sharing this with my husband not long ago, is oftentimes when we go to fast food restaurants, we'll eat, a meal from a fast food restaurant. And what happens is we find ourselves 2 to 3 hours later, we're hungry again. I mean, we're like really, really hungry again. And that's because what the food is doing is shooting our sugar up and dropping it really low. And so we're having that reaction within our bodies. And so then we want more food. And we think that eating healthy becomes expensive. But the truth of the matter is, if you eat the right whole foods, then it will fill you up. And instead of you having to spend money, $10, I don't even know what it is these days because I don't eat and make, I don't eat the fast food like that. But, you go to, one place and you spend like $10, right? And then you go to another place and you spend $10. Now you spent $20 or even the 4 for $4 at one point in time they had that, right? So now you spend $8 on that food that still is not going to fill you up because then 2 hours later, you're going to be hungry again. So consider, eating the whole foods, the plant-based foods, because those things will definitely fill you up and they're good for you. It's going to cleanse you out and, you don't feel groggy and sluggish and things of that nature. So again, if you don't, if you don't have the access to the fresh foods, next thing, go to the frozen foods. If you go to like the corner stores and gas stations, again, look at what is the healthiest thing in that particular store and try to get those things and focus on that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Good answer. 10 points.
High five.
Right.
A+.
All right. So if our people wanted to find more about you, I mean, we see your logo right behind you. Thank you for posting that. That makes it so easy for people to see.
Which way do I point? This way.
That way, yeah, right. Yeah, so if people wanted to find out more about you, other than info at My Style Matters, where else might they look?
So we have a website, mystylematters.org, mystylematters.org. We also have social media, so Facebook, My Style Matters, Instagram, My Style Matters, Twitter, My Style Matters 2, because I messed up on the first one. And then you can also, I'm trying to get on TikTok, so that has been really, really, really slow. I think I may have 2 posts on TikTok, so I'm trying to get in that groove. It's challenging when you're so busy, you got to make the videos and pull it all together. So yeah, but yeah, you can find us on social media. We also have a sisterhood that I didn't talk about called My Breast Years Ahead. And I created that group. Like I said, I was 38 years old going through treatment, and I had to be silent about what I was going through, and I couldn't talk about it because my company was laying off. And so I wanted to connect with other women. I had questions, to women that look like me, like how does breast cancer impact Black women differently than white women or Hispanic women or what have you? What about fertility? What about this? What about that? And I went to groups and nobody looked like me, being young or Black. And so, not that I had an issue with them being white, older women, it's just they couldn't answer the questions that I had at a young age, a young survivor. And so God put it in my heart to start a sisterhood because maybe you're not the only one that feels this way and you really need that connection. And so I started a sisterhood. We're almost at 600 women. It's women in the greater Atlanta area that's been impacted by this disease. We do make, allowances for other women from other states and cities to join us. because people just want to connect and want information and want to be able to compare notes to make sure that they're getting standard of care. And so that's something that I started as part of My Style Matters also. So it's a group of women I'm able to educate. So hopefully we can get you two pulled in and do something with our sisterhood. But really we want to, again, educate the community as much as we can so they can make informed decisions. You can't make the right decisions if you don't have all of the information. So our goal is to plant the seeds, really plant the seeds.
Yeah, that's great.
Got it. Yeah. Well, we will make sure we get your contact information, all your social media information up in the show notes so that people can find you. And if all else fails, they could certainly Google My Style Matters and find that.
Yes,
Certainly,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It is worth looking into, especially if you're dealing with any female cancers, breast cancers, right? And I'm guessing that you have some information on other types of cancers as well that you could share.
Yeah. And men get cancer, breast cancer too. We forget about the men. And sadly, men are usually, when it's found, it's the aggressive stages because they don't think of themselves as having breast. Right. They have breast tissue. And so understanding that they can get breast cancer too, even though the statistics is kind of, far apart, they can get it. So it's important for them to be educated about these things too.
So Tiah, this has been just such a wonderful conversation. Brought me to tears, literally. Okay, and I would like to know, is there anything else that you would like to say? Anything you would like to bring to the forefront for our listeners?
Yeah, well, I've talked a little bit about breast cancer and talked about the work that I do, of course, being a survivor. And I think it's just really important to highlight that recently a study came out, or not a study, I'm sorry, it was a report that came out from American Cancer Society for African Americans and cancer. And pretty much what they've said is, unfortunately, that breast cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related deaths in Black women. It has now surpassed lung cancer. And so with that, the things that we were talking about today, from, what you put in your body to what you put on your body, these things are so important. And unfortunately, Black women are getting younger and younger, specifically Black women. We're finding women are getting younger and younger being diagnosed with this disease. And so, yes, we don't get mammograms until we're over 40. But again, we're finding women, I was one of them, unfortunately, I became a statistic. But it's important for us to really recognize the things that we're talking about that can lower that risk factors of being diagnosed with this disease. And if you have children, whoever is tuned in and listening, really start considering these things in the home, start helping to transform the generations and the children, because, I know that they talk about like some of the cancers are genetics, right? It's 5 to 10% of the people who've been diagnosed have a gene mutation. And that puts them at a higher risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer. It does not mean that they're going to get breast cancer. And I have to, specify that, because sometimes people think that they're going to get it. That does not mean you're going to get it. It just puts you at a greater risk. But what I think is more important is that we take on the exposures and whatever has been passed on in our families, from food to the products that we use. This product has been in our family for years. And so now I'm older, I use that same product.
Right.
But it's important, if we start educating the kids, we can transform the generation so they don't have to deal with those issues when they get older. They don't have to hear the words, it's cancer in their lifetime. So if we can start doing this and really impacting the communities, especially young girls, it is so critical, so important. The things that we're putting, the hormones that they're putting in the foods, the GMOs and all of those things, and they're causing young girls to start puberty at an early age. And when they start puberty, the younger you are and starting puberty at a younger age, the higher your risk is, because now your breast tissue and the cells are more vulnerable to these exposures of those harmful chemicals or the foods that, we're eating or what have you. And so the more we're exposed, the more damage that can happen to those cells, which can then lead to a diagnosis of cancer. And so it's so critical and important that we get this messaging out. And that's why we have the Breast Health Matters program to educate teens as well as women. So if anybody who's tuned in and you're listening, we'd love to do a session with you, even if it's virtual. And we also do private parties. I do a party and I call it Hey Girl Hey. So the theme is, Hey Girl Hey, have you checked your breast today? And pretty much is we're educating women. Again, you and your sister circle bring 8 women to these parties, and we will educate you in a fun, cool, and informative way so that you can be empowered to take control of your breast health. Be the CEO of your own health. That is so important.
Yes.
Yes.
100% yes.
Oh my gosh.
Snap, snap, snap.
And the crowd went wild. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Tiah. This has just been, seriously, the best conversation in a long time.
Yes, same
Awesome.
here.
Seriously.
I know I've learned a lot.
Yeah, really powerful.
Awesome.
Like I say, we will put all of your contact information in our show notes. We'll get as much word out about what you're doing as we can. And just thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Work. Powerful.
Thank you.
Work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. 6 Million Seeds is made possible by the generosity of Bruno Chiropractic, Acme Construction Metals, EXP Realty, and Deck It Out Builders. We thank you for your support.